Many of you have probably already seen the map on our Facebook page, Anti-Cult News, showing the defenders of the anti-cult activist Jakub Jahl from the Czech Republic. For now, we just called it The Defenders of Jakub Jahl, a neutral title. Let me briefly remind you of the context. In 2025, two teams of journalists from the Czech Republic and Kazakhstan traveled to Tanzania and produced 4 documentary films.
Based on the materials presented in those films,
Jakub Jahl was accused of fraud and sexual crimes involving minors, children, accusations of pedophilia. If you haven't watched those films yet, we strongly recommend that you do, because without seeing them, it's difficult to understand the sheer enormity of what is being discussed. The thing is, after the films were released, a number of people began speaking out in defense of Jakub Jahl, and some even started accusing the creators of the investigative documentaries themselves. So today we decided to gather these so-called defenders and, before they cover their tracks, place them on the map so that later we can ask a few questions. So here is the situation as of February 2026. Well then, first on the list, Martin Siko, an anti-cult activist from the Czech Republic, a longtime friend and associate of Jakub Jahl, and also an active anti-cult activist and drug addict. Some people somewhere may see nothing wrong with that, but to me personally, it is a certain signal, a person with a clouded mind. It was Siko who accompanied Jahl on his African adventures. So far, no suspicions of sexual relations with minors have been identified, but time will tell. Kristina Sirokova is the most influential defender of Jahl in the Czech media, the architect of his rehabilitation, and a journalist for Seznam Zprávy. She is also an active anti-cultist. She has known Jahl for many years, even before Tanzania. She has been writing articles on the Seznam Zprávy portal defending Jahl, and continues to do so. Next is Wojciech Dvoracek,
a journalist for the Iroslas portal,
who has written several articles in defense of Jahl. Next is ADHD Av, a blogger and anti-cult activist from the Czech Republic. He appeared with Jahl in several videos during the most active phase of the pedophilia scandal. They were going to launch a new project and filmed a couple of episodes about cults, but that's where it stalled. Next up is Martin Mikicka, a popular blogger and anti-cult activist from the Czech Republic. He has created a video on his channel and is the author of the anti-cult portal Sect TV. Jan Bordacek, a Czech politician, in my view, though still a very preliminary one. He appears to be one of the key figures defending Jahl. That may explain why he behaves so boldly. Bordacek is acquainted with Czech-Canadian anti-cult activist Alex Alvarova. Stephen Hassan referred to her as a colleague in his recent article. Those are the kinds of connections involved here. Bordacek has been repeatedly speaking out against AllatRa and in defense of Jahl on social media. Jakub Vilimek, a journalist from the Czech Republic. In the film Pedophilic Shadows of the Anti-Cult Movement, we already commented on his disgraceful interview, clearly a commissioned piece. I wonder who paid for it and how much. Karol Zečka from the Czech police. He was mentioned in Sirokova's article as a police officer who stepped forward to defend the respectable Czech citizen Jahl. What made him conclude that this person is respectable? That remains a big question. Moving on to Martin Jonas, a journalist and anti-cult activist from the Czech Republic, a reporter for Seznam Zprávy and a colleague of Sirokova. He has written an article defending Jahl. Next, Anita Gavrankova, another journalist from the Czech Republic, who's also written an article defending Jahl. Luigi Corvaglia, an Italian anti-cult activist and a board member of FECRIS. He has visited Russia many times and, judging by available photos, he's well acquainted with Dvorkin. Why Corvaglia has stepped in to defend Jahl remains a big question. Following him from the Italian anti-cult scene comes Ethan Garba, a nickname, a hyperactive collector of anti-cult content from Italy. According to some reports, her real name is Sonia Ganelli. I talked about her in episode 31. Next, Lorita Tinelli, an anti-cult activist from Italy who's reposted articles. Next, SOS Anti-Plagio, an anti-cult organization from Italy that's also reposted articles defending Jahl. Another anti-cult organization from Italy, Favi, whose president is Maurizio Alessandrini. We already encountered his name on the Act Files portal. Moving on, Thomas Zeman from Slovakia, an active political blogger. For some reason, he's been reposting even simple tweets from Jahl, not to mention the ones where he defended him. Next, Zdeněk Vodacek, a long-standing anti-cult activist from the Czech Republic. Back in the last century, he even traveled to see Johannes Aagaard. For many people, Aagaard's name is already well known. Vodacek has already spoken out, albeit cautiously, in defense of Jahl. Next, Stephen Hassan, an anti-cult activist from the United States. In the previous episode, number 33, we examined how neural networks dissected what has been described as his art of manipulation. He wrote an article and then analyzed it. In his text, Jahl is given 2 entire paragraphs. Reading it, we can discern the familiar signs of schizophrenia. Look here, Hassan's writing about some court case that allegedly cleared Jahl and exposed this fabrication. What court case, Stephen? What are you talking about? There's been no such case. It's February 2026. Who prepared these materials for you? Who assembled this narrative and sent it to you? As I said in the previous episode, there are certain markers suggesting he didn't assemble the facts himself. There they are. He didn't prepare it. It was prepared for him. What does he actually know about this story? Nothing. Just as he knows nothing about AllatRa. Yet he's full of it, feeding us a line, and then teaching others how to distinguish truth from disinformation. Read it yourself. I'm losing my filter. What else can you say? These guys are seriously messed up in the head. Some wrote to me, "You should show respect to Dr. Hassan. Get over it."
What is there to respect about him?
What is there to respect? He's bled people dry for years, and he's still at it. He's wrecked so many lives. He's nothing but a low-life shit stirrer, another Dvorkin. Experts, they say. If you really examine it, the entire anti-cult movement turns to be pure amateurism. They are not scientists or researchers. They're just straight-up provocateurs, bullshitters, frauds, and con artists. Why should anyone respect them? They belong behind bars.
Next up, Irina Kremenovskaya,
an anti-cult activist from Ukraine, mentioned in episode 24, 26, 30, and 31 on my channel. Together with Jakub Jahl, they are 2 of a kind. In September 2025, Jahl, Kremenovska, and Korvalia began implementing a joint strategy. They simultaneously complained that they were allegedly being threatened and subjected to informational violence. They've completely lost it. But whatever, this international shams is gonna be shut down soon anyway. Moving on, time for tinfoil, also known as Bofa, a blogger and anti-cult activist mentioned in episode 32, an informational hitman from the United States, most likely living somewhere in Arizona. Numerous posts defending Jakub Jahl have been found. Next, Biosurf and Shinzu, shady YouTube bloggers. They shot some wild conspiracy trash and even put that jerk on their banner. For real? For the money, obviously. Who's gonna do that for free?
Here, just to put a simple link on someone else's portal,
You have to pay $50 or even $100 for some tiny little link, a mention. Anyone who understands will understand that they blew a ton of cash here trying to get this pedophile out. Next, a blogger on X, or Twitter, Budo, who's repeatedly reposted content, Jan Dvorsky from the Czech Republic, a former self-proclaimed messiah known as the founder of a small new religious movement there. Recently, Dvorsky has often appeared together with Jahl in his YouTube videos. I couldn't care less what the anti-cultists and the ex-messiah are yapping about. Next, Kola Kozlovsky, an anti-cult activist from the Czech Republic. Anonymous, the author of the Czech anti-cult portal Sekty TV. He's a weirdo. Kept bugging me in the comments under the map on Facebook. He was talking smack, asking if he'd get out on the map. Fine by me, knock yourself out, moron. Next, Vít Rakušan, a politician and former minister of the interior of the Czech Republic. The story goes like this. One summer day, Jahl approached him on the street and asked a question about AllatRa. He replied that they would look into it and reposted their joint photo on his social media. To be honest, for a long time I didn't want to add this minister to the map. It's obvious that Jahl just used him and totally threw him under the bus. It was a complete setup. Jahl was clinging to any straw and was ready to provoke anything. But let's be real here. There's a drug user, an ex-Satanist, a sexual deviant suspected of pedophilia and fraud. And there's a minister of interior of a European country. The minister reposting their photo together on social media.
you might say he didn't think of that.
Of course he didn't. But what does "didn't think of that" mean? The pedophile and the minister of the interior appear together in public photos. An excited pedophile on the loose, while the minister's promising to deal with his enemies. This is what it actually looks like. Wild. Wild. Yes, Rakushan got mixed up in dirty business. But who's to blame? People are outraged and asking a legitimate question. Why has no investigation been launched yet? In Tanzania, it's already begun. There is a lawyer and a legal process underway. It's driven by the ambassador and the president's advisor, by the way. Nearly a year has passed. Why hasn't an investigation started in the Czech Republic? Who put the brakes on this? The Czech Republic, by the way, has signed the AllatRa Convention. The name of this pedophile was even mentioned recently in the United States Capitol during a conference of spiritual diplomats.
We had a story recently that Pastor Mark and I shared. This was a story of a man who was not a native of Tanzania. He had come from another beautiful country, and his name was Jakub Jahl from the Czech Republic. This man, whose infamous actions represents a modern-day cross-border criminal rings.
Yet in the Czech Republic, there's still no reaction. Why? That is why Rakushan, for now, remains on the board. I hope it makes sense. Next, Valeria Ficharova, a journalist from the Czech Republic and a reporter for CNN Prima News. Just recently, a source met with us and spoke about their connection. It is possible that due to Ficharova, Jahl appeared on CNN Prima News as an expert. And on the map, there's also one rather mythical couple, a mysterious Czech movement which, according to information from neural networks, monitors information on the internet. In the Czech Republic, they are often referred to as the Czech Elves. A brief comment. This is an anonymous civic volunteer movement that monitors and counters disinformation in the Czech online space. On the one hand, that is a useful initiative. I generally support such efforts, but on the other hand, there are questions. In Kristina Sirakova's article, it is stated that these elves took Jahl's position. My main question is, on what basis did they determine that the documentary films were disinformation? Did they conduct an expert review? If so, where is it? How did the elves figure that out? Please write to me and explain how you concluded that the films are false. Or perhaps you conducted some kind of an investigation. Why did Marketa, the author of the film, recently take third place in the Women Changing the World Award, the Czech-Slovak version, in the category Women Changing the World in Media? This award is given to outstanding women who are changing the world in journalism and mass media. Marketa placed third for 2025. Marketa and David were both in the Vatican and in Washington, and she received this award. Isn't that already something? Once again, we have some inconsistencies. The next question: if the guilt of Jakub Jahl is eventually proven,
Then what will be the point of these anonymous fighters of the invisible front?
they made a mistake? Simply made a mistake? Did they not watch the film? Or are they incapable of distinguishing truth from lies? Or do they not notice how the global public is speaking more and more loudly about this high-profile case? Once again, let's recall the Vatican, Washington, D.C., and Tanzania. It seems to me that either there was some instruction from above about what position to take, or there was simply a lack of professionalism. Or there's another possibility that, to me, seems very convincing. This is yet another manipulation by a scandalous Czech journalist, what could be called Sirakova's show-off. What a precise description of the phenomenon. Perhaps these mythical elves have nothing to do with it at all. In summary, these fairy tale heroes ended up on the wall of shame thanks to the long tongue of Kristina Sirakova. If the elves are not involved and disagree, then perhaps they should ask Sirakova about it. One more thing. Personally, I cannot provide convincing evidence of the existence of the Czech elves as an organized movement. All available indications are indirect and secondary. That is all for now. The picture on the board is incomplete. I have not marked dozens of anonymous accounts and supporters of Jakub Jahl who appeared in the comments. Perhaps more names will be added later. Now, let us set aside the assumptions and deal with the facts. Let's remove the ex-minister and the elves. They are no longer needed here. Here's a map. Let's apply a simple and revealing filter to it. What percentage of these defenders professionally or episodically have engaged in anti-cult activity? In other words, who is an anti-cultist here, or who has been seen hanging around with anti-cult activists, reposting their materials, supporting their themes, and so on. At the same time, let's remember something important. The so-called fight with cults is often a hunt for undesirable organizations. It frequently involves the erosion of freedom of conscience and religion under seemingly noble pretexts, a threat to democracy. Please take a look. The names are highlighted in red, the overwhelming majority. The Czech Republic, Italy, the United States, Ukraine. Cult experts from different countries simultaneously express support for one person. Is that a coincidence or solidarity? Is the anti-cult movement protecting one of its own? If so, does that not once again confirm that an international anti-cult network exists and operates in a rather coordinated way? I'm going to add Dworkin here later. There's a good reason for that, but that's another story. Doesn't this look like a network? What would you say? Let's move on and apply the second filter. Which of these defenders of Jahl have labeled the AllatRa international public movement as a pro-Russian sect? We're changing the search parameters and highlighting the names in blue, and we see the same faces again. Once again, the majority. And now the main question. What are their accusations based on? At the beginning of February 2026, the National Police of Ukraine recognized AllatRa as a victim. And on February 25th, 2026, after 4 years of hearings, the Ukrainian court recognized AllatRa as a patriotic, pro-Ukrainian organization and issued its final verdict.
So Ukrainian law enforcement agencies and courts,
operating under wartime conditions, consider the movement a victim and an ally, while an international group of experts continues repeating the same worn-out narrative about a pro-Russian sect. So what are their accusations based on? Let's ask them. I wonder where they'll shove those big mouths of theirs. And in general, who are these people? Who put the idea into their heads that AllatRa is connected to Russia? Do you see how deep this question goes? And once again, we return to the documentary The Impact. Remember?
to that sinister anti-cult octopus,
to the Act Files website, and to the exposure of the anti-cult terrorism. But what is this gang actually doing? Corvalya may claim whatever he wants, that the network doesn't exist, that this isn't terrorism, that it's all fiction. He can knock himself out. But why have all these people gathered together on this map? Have I gathered them? No. They've come together themselves. No one forced them to speak. They've gathered there themselves. Adult people who did it all consciously. I'm not exposing them. They are exposing themselves. Nothing even needs to be proven in this case. What we see is a very clear self-presentation. What remains to be figured out is who coordinates them and how the threads lead to the puppet master pulling the strings from Russia. They've been fabricating the narrative about the pro-Russian sect, pulling the pedophile out of a huge jam, trying to clear him. Here is yet another face of the anti-cult movement. It's crazy how they didn't even care about getting their hands dirty in such a shady deal. I'm blown away, totally blown away. Or maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I ask myself that question. What if the people gathered on this board are characters very similar to Jahl himself, simply supporting one of their own? What if he talks? You know, after the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, where the so-called elite appeared in very particular lists, it seems almost anything is possible. So, the question remains open.
Do you know Jakub Jahl? A man who, according to dozens of witnesses, allegedly committed sadistic and perverse violence against children in Africa. Watch here. He is now, through further defamation of AllatRa International Public Movement, together with his colleague from the anti-cult network, Luigi Corvallia, attempting to influence the Italian parliament to begin persecuting AllatRa IPN on Italian soil. Who is Luigi Corvallia? Yet another pawn on the chessboard of the Russian anti-cult guru Alexander Dworkin. Yes, the same Dworkin who, like Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda of Nazi Germany, managed to establish real terror within Russia. Yes, the same Dworkin whose Russia's organization has been actively spreading anti-Ukrainian rhetoric in Russia for more than 10 years. Yes, that very Russians, which together with the Russian Orthodox Church dehumanized Ukrainians in the eyes of Russians, portraying them as an inferior people, as a sect, as cannibals, worthy of extermination. The Italian psychologist and sect fighter Luigi Corvalia, outwardly respectable professor, much like Dworkin, uses the same playbook, the same methods. And when I look at Luigi Corvalia's website and his anti-cult organization CESAP, in effect, the Italian Russians, it carries, like all such anti-cult organizations, a noble-sounding banner, a non-profit aimed at protecting society from destructive cults, protecting children. First point in Dworkin's manual fulfilled. If you want to establish totalitarian control, you must look good. You must appear credible, as if you are protecting children. It is a perversely brilliant way to continually expand these seemingly benevolent programs, and through them to demand even legislative changes, to write letters to influence lawmakers so that they begin drafting and adopting laws supposedly protecting people from cults and sects, but which gradually enslave the very people they claim to protect. Laws that deny everything that forms the sense of democracy, and instead establish real terror as we see in Russia. Look, here's what Luigi proudly shows on his social media. A letter from a politician echoing Luigi's, and by extension Dworkin's, anti-cult propaganda. A letter that is nothing less than a call to the Italian parliament to adopt an anti-cult law. What is such an anti-cult law? Every such law, as Dworkin's perversely ingenious model demonstrates, is another nail in the coffin of the freedoms guaranteed by Constitution. Once again, it may seem that I am exaggerating, right? What anti-cult network, what propaganda, what connections and mutual inspiration? Well, judge for yourself. Incidentally, these are the very people who supported Jakub Jahl in his self-defensive narrative. That it was not he who, according to witnesses, committed those horrific acts, but that it is AllatRa IPN allegedly running a smear campaign against him because he supposedly exposed AllatRa. He exposed nothing. He merely copied the anti-cult manuals of Russia's agents, who began discrediting AllatRa in Russia more than a decade ago. And they succeeded. AllatRa. No, real living people have been facing atrocities and terror in Russia because of this network. Along with them, thousands of others from different organizations. And in the end, everyone. Because once terror and the absence of freedom are established in a country, they reach everyone. Each person feels it on their own skin. And now this network seems to do the same in Italy. Yet another attempt in yet another European democratic country. You see, this list of names, they are anti-cult activists from various countries. Stephen Hassan, a deprogrammer from the United States, who reproduces Dworkin's rhetoric in his books. Thomas Gando from Germany, who went through the same ideological training of propaganda as Dworkin. The anti-cult network is not fiction. It is not some fantastical conspiracy. The anti-cult network is a real threat to the lives and freedoms of all of us. More details on actfiles.org.